We have a few people still joining the call, so we'll just wait another minute or two and then get started. I see by my clock that we're at 12:01, so I am going to begin the webinar, and as people join on, they can catch up here. I just want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us. This is the first time that LSO is using this specific webinar technology, so if there are any glitches and blips, we'll try to address them as best we can, so please bear with us. We'll try to address some of the potential issues up front in terms of if there is any audio issues, and I'll do that shortly. But having said that, we are recording the entire webinar, and it will be posted onto our website. So if you are having any issues, you will be able to take a look at the webinar in its entirety post this session. You'll notice on the right hand of your screen there is a chat chat feature. And within that chat feature, you will be able to post questions, and I will be able to see them. And at the end of the presentation, I'll go through them and answer the questions the best of my ability within the time frame of this session. For those questions that I do not get to during the session, there will be contact information and details provided at the end of the webinar. During the webinar, there's going to be several polling questions, live polling questions that you will be able to participate in. And the first one, and so you'll see those signified by these slides. And the first one I'm going to pose is one just to confirm that everyone can indeed hear me and that they have the streaming audio working. So if you go ahead, I'll leave each of the polling questions up for about 10 seconds or so until we allow people a chance to vote on this. See, there's still a few people that are having some audio issues as these results are coming in. So I'm going to share the results here. So it looks like about 50% of our participants are having some audio issues. So what I'm going to do is go to this slide, and if you are having audio issues, what I'll recommend you do is to go back to the login page and make sure you run the system check. If you are prompted for a Java plugin, that does have to be installed. If you are a Google Chrome user, you may have an issue because of pop-up blockers. I'm going to direct you to this website here, www.infiniteconferencing.com/join. There will be a link that's very clearly marked on that site on how to navigate in Google Chrome to disable your pop-up blockers. And then if all else fails, if this is still not working properly, we are being recorded and we will post on our website at the end of this session, and you'll be able to see the entire webinar in its entirety on our website. having said all of that, maybe what I'll do is I'll run that poll one more time and see if have any better results here. If you can hear me, please indicate. I think we're getting a little bit better response now when I'm viewing here. Share that shortly. Let folks have a chance to chime in again. So we're up to about 70% now on this. So I think with that, what we're going to do is go forward with the rest of the presentation. And for those of you that that can't hear me, I apologize, and hopefully you'll be able to follow up during the conference, join in, or follow up afterwards with the viewing the full webinar at the end through our website. I'd like to start off by talking about a little bit of context around what we're trying to achieve in this webinar and with this industry engagement around BIO2012 and actually in future conferences. The idea here was to engage industry through a series of different vehicles. The first one was a pre-bio survey that we conducted and then presented the results of that at our March 8th bio-industry kickoff meeting. And we also had 4 breakout sessions within that event as well to gather feedback and input from life sciences stakeholders. This webinar and the deck that I'm presenting today, it really represents a summary of the feedback that we have gathered to date. We have tried to condense it down into a fairly high level but comprehensive plan that we can put on paper that all of the stakeholders involved in the planning of BIO for Ontario delegates can use in terms of trying to address the needs of the Ontario delegates in the best way possible. So LSO will work with our partners across all governments, federal, provincial. Biotech Canada is very involved at the federal level as well. And of course, you are stakeholders to try to implement a strategic and a coordinated approach to BIO to get the best outcomes for our stakeholders. Some of the initiatives, specific initiatives that I'll talk about during this presentation, some of them may be already underway. Some of them may be implemented for this year's BIO. Others may be longer term in terms of the implementation as we go forward. But what we want to do is put together a comprehensive plan that will allow us to continuously develop as we go from BIO to BIO. So we're learning from the best practices, we're learning from the experiences of BIO year over year, and we continue to progress towards getting a better successful outcomes around BIO. In terms of the methodology, as I mentioned, we have incorporated all the feedback from the survey and the event. What we've done is we've condensed it down to get a high-level overview on what are the key outcomes that we want to be measured against and what are the Ontario delegates looking to achieve at BIO. And we've distilled these down to really 2 key areas, which is business development and the development of investment opportunities. There are enabling activities that support these, and those are networking, competitive environment, marketing, and promotion. And I'm going to talk about those in the next slide. But then as we go forward into this presentation and I talk about specific initiatives, I've segmented them not only into those 3 enabling activities, but also into 3 time frames. Things that we should be doing in pre-BIO, things that we do at BIO, and then the follow-up post-BIO. So this slide represents what I was describing. This is just a visual representation of what I was describing in the last slide in terms of what are the key target outcomes that we will measure ourselves against. And so what are the goals that we're targeting? And then what are the activities that will enable those goals? So of course, business development opportunities, investment opportunities are key. What do these look like? These can be the generation of leads in terms of new customers for Ontario companies, potential sales, strategic partnerships, potential investors, investments into the province of Ontario. These would be key tangible target outcomes. Of course, the activities that happen at BIO to support that are primarily within networking and marketing and promotion, and those are activities that we all know are a key part of BIO. Networking both within Ontario and Canada, but more importantly, the international opportunity for networking with global partners. Marketing and promotion, one of the key deliverables that we've heard in terms of getting better results in promoting and marketing Ontario is to do a better job of telling a compelling Ontario success story and really highlighting the key successes and advantages of doing business in Ontario. Central to both of these activities is this idea of a competitive environment. And competitive environment is something that we put in play here because it's the substance that really contributes to the other areas, including the marketing and promotion and the networking. It creates the environment by which Ontario can be competitive on this global stage. Creating the competitive environment has to happen not just around BIO. This is something that we do continuously with our partners to better create an environment to allow life sciences companies to thrive and flourish in Ontario. And we have to do a good job of conveying that message at BIO. So all the work that we do throughout the year, that's really put under the microscope at BIO when we're competing with other jurisdictions, and that happens quite prominently at BIO as well. So I'm going to pause here and do a quick poll and see how that resonates with everyone. This is just at a high level. I'm going to talk shortly about the specific initiatives within those areas, but trying to get a sense here on whether or not we've accurately captured the key target outcomes and the activities at a high level that will enable us to have successful outcomes for our Ontario delegates. I'm going to just wait another 10 seconds or so for folks to respond to this. Go ahead and enter your response now. More responses still coming in. There may be a little bit of a delay here with various internet connections. We have a fairly good response now, so I'm going to go ahead and share the results. So the good news is that a lot of folks seem to agree with, at least at the high level, this approach, and not too many or none disagree or strongly disagree. So I think at a high level, I think we've articulated the appropriate approach to delivering on BIO. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about some specific issues now. The first area is going to be pre-BIO. And so I'm going to start with the networking. One of the things that we heard from our feedback and engagement with industry is the need to have a more coordinated approach to BIO. And we're trying to actually take a leadership role in that, working very closely with our partners with the province of Ontario to make sure that we're engaging industry to hear what the needs of the Ontario delegates are and how we can create a more successful BIO. And then by creating this deck and this more coordinated approach that everybody can work off of, we hope to enable that coordinated approach. And we intend on continuing to do this through the post-BIO and then into BIO next year to continue that coordination. One of the things that LSO is targeting to do, again, working with our partners with the province, is to hold a BIO boot camp to help delegates get the most from BIO. And we're just confirming the date and location for that, but it's going to be towards the 3rd or 4th week of May, and I expect an announcement will go out to everyone shortly that's on our mailing list, and try and get people engaged on that, and it'll be posted on our website as well. The next thing that we heard, of course, is something very simple that will help coordinate folks, is to develop and share a directory of Ontario delegates and some of the key events. And that's something that can tie in again with this BIO boot camp and the folks that attend that. There was some suggestions about using technology, developing an app. Again, that's something that we could work towards. I think this year we'll probably try to aim for something simple. We'll work with our partners, try and get something in place so that all the Ontario delegates know who's there from Ontario, within the pavilion and outside of the pavilion, and then what are some of the key events that they can attend. The competitive environment, one of the initiatives that is key is this idea of corporate calls, and these two boxes speak to that. Corporate calls are very important, both for government and for industry. The senior officials from the government will attend meetings with companies with the goal of achieving tangible outcomes. In particular, significant investments into Ontario. It is an economic development mandate. On the flip side of that, businesses looking to invest in Ontario, of course, want to hear tangible responses to barriers to those investments. So it's really important that we work as an industry alongside our government partners to say, here are some investments that Ontario is competing for, and these are the issues that we're encountering, and make sure that we do that well in advance, that the senior officials and policymakers within government can respond to those barriers and then have real meaningful meetings at BIO. So we are going to work with all of our stakeholders to identify opportunities for investments or strategic partnerships within Ontario. And so I'm going to ask all of you on the phone as well to, if there are strategic meetings that you know of that taking place at BIO that you think the ministry or LSO can support, please let us know. There's contact information at the end of this website, and we'll work with our partners in the province to identify those. Another area which I think is a really good suggestion, and it's going to feed into this concept of continuous development and enabling best practices year over year, is to prepare a survey to collect data from the visitors to the Ontario booth, specifically international delegates. And the idea here is to gauge perception of Ontario as a jurisdiction for life sciences and investment. How does the rest of the world view Ontario? And that's going to be a key metric in determining how effective is our marketing material. How well are we telling the Ontario story? How well are we engaging the international audience? Marketing and promotion materials, again, every year there is materials that are developed by the province that detail and articulate advantages, programs, tax incentives of doing business in Ontario. We think that there's also a role for industry to play in terms of providing content on success stories. I mean, every day or every week I hear of some other really interesting success story within the Ontario life sciences community that I hadn't been aware of, and we really need to do a better job of capturing those. So there's a role for us to play as an industry and as an industry organization to capture that data and share it broadly. Part of that sharing broadly is this idea of training, and again, this was initially tabled as booth staff, but I think there's an opportunity to take this broader than just the staff at the booth, but to actually provide some sort of training or information session to all Ontario delegates to arm them with this information of why Ontario. And we've been talking with our colleagues in the province, and we're thinking about tying this into our Bio Boot Camp as a session within that Bio Boot Camp to help enable the Ontario delegates to be ambassadors for Ontario. And of course, it's always great marketing and promotion to have announcements at Bio that have a significant wow factor. But the key here is that any announcements must be substantial and tangible. They have to have real outcomes and follow-up. At Bio, again, a lot of this is implementation, but I'll just go through it really quickly. One of the things we heard is to ensure that there's meeting space for Ontario delegates, and there was also a suggestion of a potential speed dating event. We know that there are a couple of different ways that Ontario delegates can acquire meeting space on the floor, and our colleagues at Biotech Canada have space carved within the Canada Pavilion as well. So some of this may be education around how to go about accessing those spaces, and we can tie that into our Bio Boot Camp as well. I mentioned engaging Ontario delegates to bring international guests to Ontario events. This is another key area that came out of our consultations is, are we doing a good enough job of bringing international audiences to Ontario? And so we'd like to figure out some way in which we can engage our delegates to help us in that process. And we have to talk that through still and what those sort of programs or incentives might look like. One of the things we could do in that area is to consider alternative formats. So it could be, asking the question, is the Ontario breakfast in its current format capturing that international audience? Can we elevate the speaker to have a larger international attraction, or the topic, or the format of that event? Another event that we're working on right now, and LSO is doing this in collaboration with Biopolis Quebec, is a workshop called Interconnection, and that was done for the first time last year just by Quebec, but they've asked Ontario to participate in the organization of that, and that attracted a relatively large contingent of an international audience, and it's viewed as a constructive partnering session. So it's not just about meeting people, but it's actually sitting down with some international folks and talking about some relevant topics, hot topics of the day within a particular area. And that still has to be developed as we go forward. But again, another alternative event format. Again, the competitive environment here, this is focused on delivering on the corporate calls and making sure that it is a two-way conversation about specific and tangible investment opportunities for Ontario, as well as those barriers to investment. The incentive for booth visitors, again, this is about capturing that data at the booth survey about the perspectives of Ontario. And again, the idea that an announcement that demonstrates the commitment to life sciences will be key, and it has to be significant and tangible, as noted in this box. In terms of delivering on the marketing materials, again, these concepts of doing a better job at profiling and telling the success story will be key, but also engaging the entire delegation to promote Ontario. We're all ambassadors for Ontario, all of the delegates, and we need to harness that. And we hope that we will enable that through our Bio Boot Camp as well. So please stay posted for that. Key to success of BIO going forward into next year at Chicago will be the post-BIO follow-up. Within these three areas, networking, it's really important that all delegates and all partners, whether it's LSO, the province of Ontario, and the industry delegates themselves, have to ensure that we support one another to follow up on any outstanding information requests, and continue conversations and participate actively to close the deal. We want to continue this as a team effort going forward, and where there can be interaction between the partners, we'll want to try to enable that as much as possible. We will host another follow-up. I put down webinar. Depending on the response to this venue, it may or may not be a webinar. Certainly, I think an in-person event might be very useful to really gather the feedback and to share best practices and the experience of the Ontario delegates at BIO. We will conduct a post-BIO survey to measure our success. I'm going to talk in the next section about what those metrics will look like. They'll be both qualitative and quantitative metrics. We have to do something with the data that we gather from the booth. So who was visiting the booth? What are their perceptions of Ontario? How do we use that information to help guide us throughout the year in terms of everything from policy development to our marketing materials, to how do we target that international audience and get that messaging out there. This is absolutely key to building a competitive environment going forward. Ontario-Quebec corridor was announced last year. We've done a few events around this, and there will be another event probably pre-BIO in Quebec around this. But we need to do a better job of building a tangible piece around the Ontario-Quebec corridor in 2013, where we can say that this wasn't just an announceable without substance. We need to build that substance, and that's actually going forward right now. I know that our partners with the province are underway in getting their working groups established and active, and we're going to continue to work with them to see how we can help put meat on the bones of this going into 2013 in Chicago. Marketing and promotion materials, again, we'll want to gauge how effective we were in terms of the message around this material. We want to continue to promote Ontario throughout the year, so not just at BIO, but at other conferences as well. And again, we need to look forward into 2013 in Chicago and make sure that we're more proactive in the approach, that we continue to have a coordinated approach and have an earlier start for next year. So that's the goal post-BIO. So I am going to pause here and carry out another poll. This poll is going to ask for your input on these specific initiatives. Again, some of them are still fairly high level. They need to be, we need to dig down a little bit more on the actual specific initiatives that will come out of those. But the idea here, again, is to get a plan on paper that will allow us to work together, all work off the same page, and see how we can get the best outcomes for BIO. I'm going to pause here for another 10 seconds or so and let folks answer. Again, please go ahead and enter your response. I think we've captured the majority of the responses, so I'm going to go ahead and share this with everyone. So I think, as everybody can see here, that there's no huge disagreements here. Still a fairly large number of folks that are neutral to this. I think maybe part of it may be seeing what the outcomes will be as we go forward, but certainly there's a good indication that we might be heading down the right track here. So I am encouraged by that. So I am going to just talk briefly about metrics. It's really important that we measure ourselves, and again, this is key for this plan to be a living document, to develop and evolve over time, year over year. We will be conducting a post-bio survey for our delegates to really ask the question, are the needs of the delegates being met? And if not, how can we do a better job of engaging delegates? And that'll be part of the conversation with a post-bio follow-up, whether it's through a webinar event like this or an in-person session. We also need to measure our quantitative successes as well. Before I move on to that, we do want to gather the information from the booth survey as well to gauge the perception, the international perception of Ontario as a life sciences jurisdiction. On quantitative metrics, one of the areas that we're looking at is this idea of deal flow. Now, this could be any number of things, and we're going to have to break down the plan and to see what are the best metrics within deal flow. But it can be, I think leads generated is a really nice one because it can have a lot of meaning. It can be leads generated for strategic partnerships. It could be actual sales. It could be letters of intent. It could be leads for investors. So leads generated, I think, will be a key one. Realized deal flow, so actual sales, contracts signed, financing, those would be also metrics that we would like to take a look at. Some of those develop over time, though. That's why I think leads is a really good one to look at. But again, that'll have to be developed as we go into the post-bio phase. But I'd really be interested to hear back from folks. And again, you can feel free to connect with me via email or through the contact at the end of this session about metrics that can fall under the deal flow. And certainly we'd like to measure how well we're doing at engaging the international folks. So again, we'll take the data from the booth survey and the events, the various events, see who's actually attending these, how well we're doing at capturing that international audience and that interaction. Again, I am going to do a short poll and just ask folks how they feel about these metrics and whether or not they think that they'll allow us to measure success against the target outcomes that we've set. And I'll wait another 10 seconds or so and let people respond. I think we have a fairly good response now, so I'm going to share the results. I think most folks think that we're on the right path here. There's no strongly agrees. Again, I'm not completely surprised by that. I think we need to work out some of the details about what those metrics will look like, and again, that's the reason why I encourage you to feed into that process. And again, year over year, we're going to develop this as we go forward. So this is really a starting point for us to build on. So I am going to just finish off the webinar and this presentation by providing some contact details. Again, for those of you that like to ask some questions, you can use the chat feature on the right-hand side. There's a little capture bubble, speaking bubble that you can type into. You click on that, you can type in your questions. I'll be happy to read them and answer them. The contact information listed here, you can either email me directly. I think most of you probably have my email address, or you can email our admin at lifesciencesontario.ca. They will get forwarded to me, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. I'll ask you if you can maybe just flag in the subject line bio webinar follow-up or something like that, and then we can flag those as we go forward. I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that this webinar is being recorded, and we intend on posting this webinar on the LSO website afterwards, assuming that we get the video to work and everything goes well. Again, this is our first time conducting this webinar, but we'll post that as it becomes available. So with that said, I will gladly answer any questions that you may have if you send them through the chat box. And I'm not getting any questions so far, but I'll wait a few more minutes to see if anybody has. Okay, I have one coming in now. And the question that's being asked is, do you have the personnel to implement these strategies? That's a really good question. And I think that the key here is that LSO operates primarily through volunteers and the broader life sciences community, and through our partners. And all of these strategies isn't necessarily for one partner to implement. It's not about LSO implementing all of these initiatives. It's not about the Government of Ontario implementing all of these initiatives, or Biotech Canada, or the feds. It is about us working as a Ontario delegation together to see how we can achieve success through these strategic initiatives. So to answer the question, does LSO have the capacity to do this by themselves? The answer would be no. We need to engage our stakeholders. The delegates themselves, we want to engage, again, through our Bio Bootcamp. We're going to play a role in engaging delegates to participate actively and help deliver on these, and we will work with our partners to give them this information, share this information, and see how we can work together to deliver on these. Another question that's coming up is, when will the list of attendees be available, before or at BIO? Well, I think ideally we'd like to do it before BIO. We are targeting this Bio Bootcamp. I think some of the attendance there at the Bio Bootcamp will feed into that creation of a directory. As the programs and agendas are being developed, we'd like to tie in this list of attendees, not only just as a list of attendees, but maybe highlight some specific events within Canada and Ontario that might be good for our delegates to attend and participate in. So the idea is that it'd be great to have it before BIO, and as we go forward year over year, I think the hope is that we can do this earlier and earlier. This year, I think we'll be doing well if we get it done before BIO and share it with the delegation. Hopefully next year we can get in front of it a little bit more, share it well in advance, and that way the delegates can have an opportunity to interact with one another. And the Bio Bootcamp might be an opportunity to do that. Another question I'm getting is, how many Ontario delegates are you expecting to attend? That's a very good question. We did do a survey, the pre-BIO survey, and I'll have to go back to that to see what the response was. But I think that there was on the order of 50 or so respondents. I know that there's actually quite a few more Ontario delegates that attend than that, but those are the ones that responded to the survey. At the March 8th meeting, there was something on the order of 120 registrants. So that gives you kind of a good ballpark of the folks that are interested in attending. Ontario usually has a really good showing in terms of the Ontario delegates. There's always a significant presence within the province and the pavilion there. There's a list of companies that are within the Ontario pavilion as well, and that'll be made available as part of the directory. And actually, the folks at MEDI do a great job of coordinating those folks as well. So, ballpark ballpark figure, I think that we'd be looking at over 100 delegates. Another question I have is there a specific agenda for LSO members and board members while at BIO 2012? Currently there isn't, but I think where this ties into is in this strategic sort of approach and coordination at BIO. As we develop both the directory of players and have these BIO boot camps to try to engage folks and to identify events that we can coordinate around, we can build that type of agenda. As we go forward, of course, you know, the province, they have an agenda of events that they do, and an agenda and a schedule for the minister, and we will feed into part of that. And building that agenda for industry as well will be a key part, and that'll play into this BIO boot camp as well in developing that agenda for Ontario delegates. So I think that BIO boot camp will be a good venue for which that can be developed further. Another question that's being asked is, what % of today's webinar attendees will be attending BIO? That's a very good question, and we can actually let's do a little poll. I'm going to do this on the fly here, so please bear with me. I'm going to ask folks, or actually, if you want, you can just raise your hand. If you're attending BIO, click the little hand button in your screen, and you can let me know whether or not you're attending BIO, and I can view it. I'll give people just a chance to click on that. So what I'm seeing is about half of the folks that are on this call right now are planning on attending BIO this year. Upper left-hand corner. So I'm going to go ahead and lower hands. So that was a nice use of that feature of the raising the hand. So I do like this webinar technology. I hope we can get the audio kinks worked out in future events. Now with that, I'm just going to ask, is there any other questions? That was the end of the question list that I had received. So if there are no further questions, what I'm going to do is ask you to just stay on the line for another minute, and I'm going to do one final poll, and that is really some feedback around this, your experience with this format and the webinar format. So I'm going to post this, but if you still have questions, feel free to go ahead and ask. I'm going to let folks just fill this in. I had a question just come in asking how many participants did we have on the call today. Some people have called in and dropped off as we've gone along, so it's hard to measure here, but I think in total we've had on the order of 25 to 30 participants on the call today. I'm going to share the results here. So it seems people like the webinar, so that's good. I think it's interesting technology and a good way, of course, to engage a broader audience across Ontario, which is something that we strive to do. So I'm going to stop here, and if anyone has any more questions now. Looks like that's it, so I am going to end the conference here. I just want to thank everyone for attending and for participating. In terms of next steps, we are going to coordinate with our partners, with the province and with Biotech Canada and all of you, and we will look we'll look forward to doing the Bio Boot Camp and try to engage folks further during that session. So again, we're going to target that for towards the end of May, third or fourth week of May. We're just fixing the date and location right now, and we'll be off and running with that. And hopefully that will be a really great platform to launch a successful bio for all of the Ontario delegates. With that, thank you very much, and I'm ending the call.